All right, good evening, folks. Welcome to Kirk's Law Corner, Friday night fun night. We're going to have a little bit of fun tonight. I'm going to cover what Donald Trump has laid down over the last 4 years, approximately. Not quite 4, but give people a better idea of what's really going on. And then I'm going to debunk this whole sovereign citizen thing. And maybe not all of it, because there's definitely more stuff I could pull up and show, especially about the Southern Poverty Law Center and how one of their head guys is, messed up there somehow. And anyways, I can't remember exactly everything, but we will just have to go with that for now, right? So, welcome to Friday Night Fun Night, folks. It's going to be a good one. And for those of you out there that aren't familiar or new or whatever and like to help support the channel, or those that are not new, I forgot to unmute myself over here, so apologize for that. And I don't know why this keeps moving. Welcome to Friday Night Fun Night on YouTube. Now that we have sound over there for you, apologize on that. And for those of you on Facebook, you get to rehear this. Going to be covering what Trump has done over the last 4 years, his executive orders, proclamations, and kind of laying this all out for everybody so we can kind of have a better idea of what's really going on. Okay. And then I'm going to debunk the whole sovereign citizen thing. And again, maybe not the whole thing, because like I said over here before, I had the mic on over there on YouTube, you can hear now, is that I don't have all of it that I would like to have pulled up and ready to go. But I've spent the last about 2.5 hours trying to put this all together. So I hope you enjoy this show and be very educational and knowledge. We got to have that knowledge, right? And that's the way this all works. Knowledge is power. And if you don't have the knowledge, you don't have any power. And then once you have the power, you have to learn how to wield that power. But not enough time in just even one day to try and educate everyone on that. So that's why we did multiple videos over many, many, many years. So here we go. We ready for the debunking? No, not yet. Uh-oh. There we go. Oh, Lordy. I have to do all this all by myself, see? All right. So I've got, let's see. Let's start over here. Back to the beginning. Back to the beginning of when all this started, right? What happened at the very beginning of the inception of President Trump taking office? March 13th, 2017. So here's the executive order from March 13th, 2017. Today, we're beginning the process of a long overdue reorganization of our federal departments and agencies. We've assembled one of the greatest cabinets in history, and I believe that so strongly, and we want to empower them to make their agencies as lean and effective as possible, and they know how to do it. Today, there is duplication and redundancy everywhere. Billions and billions of dollars are being wasted on activities that are not delivering results for hardworking American taxpayers and not even coming close. This order requires a thorough examination of every executive department and agency to see where money is being wasted, how services can be improved, and whether programs are truly serving the American citizens. Okay. So the Director of Office of Management and Budget will oversee the evaluation, working with experts inside and outside the federal government, as well as seeking input from the American people themselves. Based on this input, we will develop a detailed plan to make the federal government work better, reorganizing, consolidating, and eliminating where necessary. In other words, making the federal government more efficient and very, very cost productive. So we're going to do something, I think, very, very special. They never have been done to the extent that we're going to be able to do it. And you're already seeing results. We will then work with Congress to implement these recommendations on behalf of the American people. So with that, I want to thank everybody very much, and I want to wish the cabinet good luck. I think we have some of the finest people ever assembled for a cabinet. We're going to do a great job for the American people. Thank you so much. Now, I actually thought that was this is the remarks on the signing of the order to reorganize the executive branch. So I actually did not pull up the correct executive order, but nonetheless, it references it. I'm just going to go ahead and move on to the next one. This is where he proclaimed that we're basically going back to the rule of law. We need to fully comprehend this. Okay. This is the proclamation he proclaims December 10th as Human Rights Day, December 15th, 2007 is a Bill of Rights Day, and the week beginning December 10th, 2007 is Human Rights Week. Okay. December 8th, this was actually was issued on the 8th and was, I believe, was published on the 10th or became effective. I don't know. Our great country was forged in the fires of a revolution to overthrow the rule of a tyrant by a free people who understood the fundamental truth that liberty is best secured when the state's power is carefully limited. From the Declaration of Independence to the Constitution and through the Bill of Rights, our country and our people have always known the true God-given nature of liberty and the ability of law to safeguard it against the state. Excuse me. For 226 years, the final piece of this freedom-sustaining bulwark, the Bill of Rights, has formed the bedrock of the constitutional protections every American holds dear as their birthright. Okay? Bill of Rights Day, we recognize the importance of the first 10 amendments to our Constitution, to protecting our liberty and freedom against the inevitable encroachment of government. Our founding fathers understood the threat of expansive, omnipresent government. From the beginning of our republic, see, that says republic, not democracy. Okay? Therefore, they endeavored to enhance the Constitution with a Bill of Rights, a specific enumeration of fundamental rights, key word, fundamental rights, that would prevail even against a future government inclined to abuse the power it has over the lives of citizens. Okay. On June 8, 1789, James Madison, originally skeptical of the need for a Bill of Rights, introduced in Congress several amendments to the Constitution, and they were not actually amendments. They were articles. And I'll show you where it was printed as articles. But anyhow, that would eventually form the Bill of Rights. During the ensuing debates, Madison told the Congress that because all power is subject to abuse, it was worth taking steps to ensure that such abuse may be guarded against in more secure manner. Many of the rights set forth in the amendments Madison introduced that day are quite familiar to us as Americans. The right to worship as we please. That's a right. The right to speak our minds and consciences. Right. You do have that right, but remember, you have to be responsible when you speak your mind, especially when you're talking about somebody else. Your rights stop where somebody else's rights begin. And that's why we have the law on libel and slander. Okay? Thou shalt not bear false witness. It's the 9th commandment. The right to firearms to protect ourselves and our loved ones. Well, that's a right. The right to be free from unwarranted government searches and seizures. Yes, we have that right to be secure from government. The right to a jury of our fellow citizens when accused of legal wrongdoing. Others, like the right to object to housing troops in our homes during peacetime. And it ain't just about housing troops in our homes. It's about having standing armies, period. Are often thought of as relics of a bygone era. Regardless of their familiarity or applicability to our daily lives, however, each clause of the Bill of Rights addresses profound and real abuses the founders faced, and each is crafted and locked into law to protect us and future generations from their repetition. Since its adoption, the reach of the Bill of Rights has spread far beyond America's shores. As George Washington rightfully said, liberty, when it begins to take root, is a plant of rapid growth. For example, in the wake of the devastation of World War II, the spirit of the Bill of Rights inspired the United Nations General Assembly to adopt the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. Just like the Bill of Rights, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is grounded in the recognition that just governments must respect the fundamental liberty and dignity of their people. By enumerating core rights that should be immune from government encroachment, both the Bill of Rights and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights have helped fuel remarkable prosperity and achievement around the world. Okay? So, during Human Rights Day, Bill of Rights Day, and Human Rights Week, we rededicate ourselves to steadfastly and faithfully defending the Bill of Rights and human rights. That's what we're defending. Our God-given fundamental rights are soon overcome, if not safeguarded by the people. We therefore also reflect upon the many individuals who are unable to enjoy the God-given rights that we as Americans know are secure. We remember those suffering under the yoke of authoritarianism and extremism for doing nothing more than standing up to injustice or daring to profess or practice their religion. And we acknowledge those imprisoned or in peril simply because of their political views of their sex. Now, therefore, I, Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the constitutional laws of the United States, do hereby proclaim December 10th as Human Rights Day, December 15th as Bill of Rights Day, and the week beginning December 10th as Human Rights Week. Now pay attention. I call upon the people of the United States to mark this observance with appropriate ceremonies and activities. Okay? I'm going to ask you right now. We don't have to wait. The claim and exercise of a right cannot be converted into a crime. Miller versus U.S., that has already been to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has given that opinion that you cannot convert a right, the claim and exercise of a right cannot be converted into a crime. Same thing with Murdoch versus Pennsylvania. You cannot convert a right into a privilege, license it, and attach a fee to it. That's the opinion of the court. Shuttlesworth versus Birmingham, right? If the state does convert that right into a privilege, license and attach a fee to it, you can engage in that act with impunity, which means they cannot convert that into a crime or claim that you're committing some sort of crime because you're exercising a right. That's the fundamental principles of law. Our rights are off limits to government, period. All right, so now we're going to go to the next big step in history right here. Executive order blocking the property of persons involved in serious human rights abuse or corruption. December 21st, 2017. This is in direct relation of what's going on right now. By the authority vested in me as president, by the Constitution and laws of the United States of America, including the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, the National Emergencies Act, the Global Magnitsky, whatever, Human Rights Accountability Act, Section 212F of the Immigration and Nationality Act, and Section of the United States Code. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America, find that the prevalence and severity of human rights abuse and corruption that have their source, in whole or in substantial part, outside the United States, such as those committed or directed by persons listed in the annex of this order, have reached such scope and gravity that they threaten the stability of international political and economic systems. Human rights abuse and corruption undermine the values that form an essential foundation of stable, secure, and functioning societies, have devastating impacts on individuals, weaken democratic institutions. Remember, we're talking about world here. Degrade the rule of law, perpetuate violent conflicts, facilitate the activities of dangerous persons, and undermine economic markets. The United States seeks to impose tangible and significant consequences on those who commit serious human rights abuse or engage in corruption, as well as protect the financial system of the United States from abuse by these same persons. That's the gist of this order. I mean, there's a whole bunch more in here, but this is the gist of it. It's go time. If you're involved in serious human rights violations, abuse, right? That's human trafficking, no less, or engaging corruption, you're going to get busted worldwide. Again, this is December 21st, 2017, folks. Okay. So what did he do next? March 1st, 2018. Amendments to the Manual for Courts Martial. By the authority vested in me as President of the Constitution and laws of the United States, including Chapter 47 of Title 10 United States Code, Uniform Code of Military Justice, UCMJ, in order to prescribe amendments to the Manual for Courts Martials, the United States prescribed by executive order, what? Clear back to 1984. Huh. Essentially, what he's saying here is that he's fixing what's wrong with our admiralty courts. They're all supposed to be admiralty courts and courts martials under admiralty jurisdiction, maritime law. Okay, so Like this one here. We'll just start here. Section 1, Part 2 and 3 and 4 of the Manual of Courts Martial of the United States are amended as described in Annex 1, which is attached to and made part of this order. The amendments shall take effect on the date of this order, subject to the following. Nothing in Annex 1 shall be construed to make punishable any act done or admitted prior to the date of this order. I don't know, maybe I can make that just a wee bit bigger. Well, if my keyboard wants to work. Okay, let's try that. Make punishable any act done or omitted prior to the date of this order that was not punishable when done or admitted. See, they were leaving things out that people in 1984, they amended it back then. Oh, yeah, no. But let me, what's this say? Supposed to come effective January 1st, 2019. What do you think's been going on since January 1st of 2019? That's when to kick up a little bit, isn't it? People started getting worried. So let's move on to the next one here. March 13th, 2018. There, you see what's going on here? See how this is tying together? How this stuff ties together? Blocking the property, making the amendments, comes out and says, that's right, I'm going to end human trafficking. Okay. My administration will focus on ending the absolutely horrific practice of human trafficking. And I'm prepared to bring the full force and weight of our government, whatever we can do, in order to solve this horrific problem. But I thought that didn't exist. To some people out there, they don't seem to think that human trafficking exists, let alone child pedophilia rings and all that stuff. Oh, that doesn't exist. Right. With millions affected worldwide, human trafficking is a global atrocity that deprives millions of their universal human rights. Wait a minute. What was he talking about there? Talking about these things right here? That's right. Human trafficking, also known as modern slavery, affects people from all backgrounds at home and abroad, placing millions in a sickening form of exploitation. For the International Labor Organization, there may be as many as 24.9 million victims of forced labor across the world, with millions going unidentified and unseen. Children are especially vulnerable to this evil practice, as they account for 25% of modern slaves. Victims are compelled to perform labor or commercial sex acts through the use of fraud, force, or coercion, reducing the value of human lives to that of mere commodities. The United States is a source, transit, and destination country for men, women, and children, both United States citizens and foreign nationals victimized by human trafficking. In the fiscal year of 2017, Department of Homeland Security's Immigration and Customs Enforcement Homeland Security investigations initiated 833 human trafficking cases, resulting in 1,602 arrests and 578 convictions, and identified 518 victims of human trafficking. In just the fiscal year of 2017. Okay. The HHS-funded National Human Trafficking Hotline received reports of 8,686 unique cases of potential trafficking in fiscal year 2007, identifying 21,644 potential victims. Annual illicit profits from human trafficking were estimated to be as high as $150 billion in 2014, demonstrating the substantial economic scale of this abhorrent criminal industry. Protecting the innocent. President Donald J. Trump is taking a stand against human trafficking, dedicating our government's full resources towards fighting this repulsive crime. The president's interagency task force to monitor and combat trafficking in persons, PITF, is working tirelessly to address all aspects of human trafficking, all aspects. As defined by the Trafficking Victims Prevention Act, it is the policy of the United States government to address human trafficking via the 3 Ps: prosecution of traffickers, protection of victims, and prevention of human trafficking. In March 2018, the president appointed the 9 human trafficking survivors to serve on the U.S. Advisory Council on Human Trafficking for terms of 2 years. President Trump declared January 2018 National Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month. In September 2017, Ivanka Trump and Deputy Secretary of State Sullivan joined more than 20 world leaders at the United Nations General Assembly for a global call to end modern slavery and to announce the State Department's $25 million grant to the Global Fund to end modern slavery. February 2017, the president signed Executive Order 13773, enforcing federal law with respect to transnational criminal organizations and preventing international trafficking. That was right in the very beginning, that February of 2017, which I don't have that one pulled up. So there's one I'm missing. I need to go back and get that one. Put it in this chronological order of things, but this one covers it, right? This order directed the United States government to identify, interdict, disrupt, and dismantle the transnational criminal organizations that engage in human trafficking. In light of the impending Senate vote on H.R. 1865, the FOSTA-SESTA legislative package designed to fix online sex trafficking, the Trump administration is hosting a roundtable on human trafficking to review and discuss the path forward on this critical issue. So please don't try and tell me that Trump isn't going after human trafficking, that it doesn't exist when it does. Okay. So now let's go into understanding some human trafficking, and we'll go to the law here, right? While existing data are not sufficient to fully identify the extent of human trafficking in the United States, current research indicates that many law enforcement agencies in the United States have encountered, I don't know if that's going to be big enough, but indicates many law enforcement agencies in the United States have encountered some form of human trafficking or contacted victims through routine work and investigations into other crimes. Victim service providers may also come into contact with trafficking victims in a variety of settings. Due to complex nature of the crime, perpetrators often operate unnoticed, and those who suffer are not likely to self-identify as victims of human trafficking. Trafficking victims do not always see themselves as victims, often blaming themselves for their situation. This makes discovering this crime more difficult because victims rarely self-report, and the time and resources required to uncover violations can be significant. Too many victims are misidentified and treated as criminals or undocumented migrants. In some cases, victims are hidden behind doors in domestic servitude in a home. In other cases, victims live in plain view and interact with people on a daily basis, yet they experience commercial, sexual exploitation, or forced labor under extreme circumstances in public settings such as exotic dance clubs, factories, or restaurants, and are not identified due to lack of identification, training, and awareness. Let's get into this definition. According to federal legislation, the Trafficking Victims Protection Act of 2000, that happens to be cited there in that executive order I just went over, right? Yep, sure was. Reality of human trafficking is defined a sex trafficking in which a commercial sex act is induced by force, fraud, or coercion, or in which the person induced to perform such act has not attained 18 years of age. That's them boys out there, ladies and gentlemen, sick, vile individuals. That child pedophilia, child trafficking. Not attained 18 years of age yet. Or B, the recruitment. Oh, wait. Here's part B of human trafficking. Wait a minute. The recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision, or obtaining of a person for labor or services through the use of force, fraud, or coercion for the purpose of subjecting to involuntary servitude, peonage, debt, bondage, or slavery. Let me ask you a question. If bills of attainder are prohibited in our form of government, which is legislation that says this is a crime and here's the punishment, a fine or jail time, and you have to go out there involuntary servitude, like that work release, or what's that, the like the community service and that kind of, there's another, man, I can't remember what it is. They go along the highways there and pick up trash and stuff. Alternatives to going to jail. They get all these other options, right? But that's involuntary servitude. It's peonage and it's slavery. Human trafficking often involves severe violence to its victims, along with a host of other crimes, including gang, drug, property crimes, organized criminal operations. Would that be these de facto kangaroo courts? How do we not see that these courts are de facto? They're not lawful without facts of law, and they're kangaroo courts because they don't recognize our rights. They don't follow the law. They follow their own code, their own rules, and they play the game of we're going to do what we want to do and catch me if you can. It's what we've been trying to do here for years, trying to educate the people on what the law is, because if you don't know the law, you're not going to know what they're doing is unlawful. You have to know the law first. You can't teach somebody about the fraud unless they know what's correct, what's true, what the law actually says. And people need to learn that law first, because anything that comes in conflict with that would be fraud, void for any effect. That's why it's so important to know the law first. What are your rights? Where do they come from in law? As it is written. And how to effectively defend them. That all is the fundamental law, the common law. Got to learn that stuff first. Can't go out there and start wielding any kind of power until you know what your rights are and you know how our form of government is and the limitations of government. You have to know all that stuff. I know it seems quite overwhelming, especially in this time, this day and age where, a lot of us are already adults and we're way past, having enough time to go to school. Oh, wait, they didn't even teach us that stuff in school. I mean, I had a little bit of a civics thing back in 9th grade. But that was, 1987-ish there. So It's definitely not like what it was in the early 1800s, where kids went to the church for school. There's no such thing as a public school, government schools. Our schools back then used to be the church, school during the week and church on Sundays. And it was up to the parents to decide whether or not they sent their children to school or not. Government didn't have a say in it. Don't have a say in it today either, really. If you read even their own code. But they've tried to step on that property, that right, those aggregate guaranteed rights, the right to educate our children how we see fit. They want them to go to their public education schools, right? So they can indoctrinate them. No, thank you. And who remembers this one? Executive order regarding the establishment of a task force on market integrity and consumer fraud. July 11th, 2018. By the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution and laws of the United States of America, in order to strengthen the efforts of the Department of Justice and federal, state, local, and tribal agencies to investigate and prosecute crimes of fraud committed against the U.S. government and the American people, recover the proceeds of such crimes, and ensure just and effective punishment of those who perpetrate crimes of fraud, is hereby ordered as followed. The Attorney General shall establish within the Department of Justice a task force on market integrity and consumer fraud task force. The task force shall include the following members: Deputy Attorney General serves as the chair, Associate Attorney General who serves as the vice chair, Assistant Attorney General, Criminal Division, Civil Division, Tax Division, Antitrust Division, Director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, United States attorneys designated by the Attorney General, and such other officers or employees of the Department of Justice as the Attorney General may from time to time designate. Okay. More good stuff there, right? Homeland Security, Social Security, Consumer Financial Protection, Securities Exchange Commission, National Credit Union Administration, the Chief Postal Inspector for the Postal Inspection Service. What are their duties here? Functions. Provide guidance for the investigation and prosecution of cases involving fraud on the government. The financial markets and consumers, including cyber fraud and other fraud targeting the elderly, service members and veterans, and other members of the public. Procurement and grant fraud, securities and commodities fraud, as well as other corporate fraud, with particular attention to fraud affecting the general public. Digital currency fraud, money laundering, including the recovery of proceeds, healthcare fraud, tax fraud, and other financial crimes. Provide recommendations to the Attorney General on fraud enforcement initiatives across the Department of Justice and any matters the task force determines from time to time to be important to the investigation and prosecution of fraud and other financial crimes. Making recommendations to the President through the Attorney General for the action to enhance cooperation among agencies in investigation and prosecution of fraud and other financial crimes. Money. So anywhere taxpayer dollars comes in here, pretty much anywhere. Like, I don't know, all of Title IV. How about the whole Social Security Act? There's nothing but human trafficking right there, ain't it? It's fraud. Now, this is where things kind of get a little interesting. There might be some of you out there that are old enough to remember JFK and the assassination of the president. Huh. What are we doing here? Memorandum for the heads of the executive departments and agencies. And this was memorandum of the heads of executive departments and agencies. Certification for certain records related to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. As I explained in my temporary certification of October 26, 2017, the American people expect their government to provide as much access as possible to the President John F. Kennedy's assassination records so that they may, as they deserve, finally be fully informed about the aspects of this pivotal event. Over the past 180 days, executive departments and agencies have reviewed all the information within records temporarily withheld from release and have proposed to the Archivist of the United States that certain information should continue to be redacted because of identifiable national security, law enforcement, and foreign affairs concerns. Yeah, all that corruption. The archivist has reviewed the information agencies propose to withhold and believes the proposals are consistent with the standard of section blah, 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 the President John F. Kennedy Assassination Records Collection Act of 1992, except for they were supposed to have already had it out by then. That's the problem. They've been continually suppressing this information that's supposed to have been already released to the general public. I agree with the archivist's recommendation that the continued withholdings are necessary to protect against identifiable harm to national security, law enforcement, or foreign affairs that is of such gravity that it outweighs the public interest in an immediate disclosure. What? It's been how long? $50-some years ago. Come on now. This isn't no longer immediate. I'm also ordering agencies to review each of those redactions over the next 3 years. At any time during that review period and no later than the end of that period, agencies shall disclose information that no longer warrants continued withholding. So, 3 years from this date here, April, wonder what's coming up. Wonder what's coming up. What's going to be disclosed? 2021, right? What are we going to be actually that would actually probably go back to here. Which should put it at October of 2017. Wait a minute, didn't that just pass? There's some funny stuff going on out there, folks. Lots of little tidbits here. Oh, wait. Here's a date, October 26, 2021. Okay. Accordingly, by the authority vested in me as President Commander-in-Chief by the Constitution and laws of the United States of America, I hereby certify that all information with records that agencies have proposed for continued postponement under Section shall be withheld from the public disclosure until no later than October 26, 2021. Uh-oh. Oh, here's another date, April 26, 2021. That's coming up pretty fast, ain't it? Any agent that seeks further postponement beyond October 26 shall no later than April 26, 2021 identify to the archivist the specific basis for concluding that records or portions of records satisfying the standard for continued postponement under the Act. Let's see. Thereafter, the archivist shall recommend to the President no later than September 26, 2021 whether continued withholding for public disclosure of the identified records is warranted after October 26, 2021. So, I don't know how many people knew about this. Uh-oh, what's this? October 9th, 2019. Executive order on promoting the rule of law through improved agency guidance documents. Huh. By the authority vested in me as president, blah, 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 blah. Same stuff, right? Wait. And in order to ensure that Americans are subject to only those binding rules imposed through duly enacted statutes or through regulations lawfully promulgated under them, and that Americans have fair notice of their obligations, it is hereby ordered as follows. What does this say? Policy. Departments and agencies in their executive branch adopt regulations that impose legally binding requirements on the public, even though in our constitutional democracy, which is weird, only Congress is vested with the legislative power. The Administrative Procedures Act generally requires agencies in exercising that solemn responsibility to engage in notice and comment rulemaking to provide public notice of proposed regulations under Section 553 of the United States Code, allow interested parties an opportunity to comment, consider, and respond to significant comments, and publish final regulations in the Federal Register. Agencies may clarify, existing obligations through non-binding guidance documents, which the APA exempts from notice and comment requirements. Yet agencies have sometimes used this authority inappropriately in attempts to regulate the public without following the rule-making procedures of the APA. Even when accompanied by a disclaimer that is non-binding, a guidance document issued by an agency may carry the implicit threat of enforcement action if the regulated public does not comply. Moreover, the public frequently has insufficient notice of guidance documents, which are not always published in the Federal Register or distributed to all regulated parties. Wait, there's only certain parties that are regulated by this stuff? Yep, that's right. It's not law. Regulations. Americans deserve an open and fair regulatory process that imposes new obligations on the public only when consistent with applicable law and after an agency follows appropriate procedures. Therefore, it is the policy of the executive branch, to the extent consistent with applicable law, to require that agencies treat guidance documents as non-binding, both in law and in practice, except as incorporated into a contract. Take public input into account when appropriate in formulating guidance documents, and make guidance documents readily available to the public. Agencies may impose legally binding requirements on the public only through regulations and on parties on a case-by-case basis through adjudications, and only after appropriate process, except as authorized by law or as incorporated into a contract. If you're not an agent of an agency, none of that crap applies to us. Or to you, whatever, right? Period. What it's basically saying there. Oh, wait. Why don't we look at the definitions? Has the meaning given in Section 3 of the Executive Order, regulatory planning and review is amended. Guidance document means an agency statement of general applicability intended to have future effect on the behavior of regulated parties that set forth a policy on a statutory, regulatory, or technical issue or an interpretation of a statute or regulation, but does not include the following: rules promulgated pursuant to the notice and comment under rules exempt from rulemaking requirements, rules of agency organization, procedure, or practice, decisions of agency adjudications under similar statutory provisions, internal guidance directed to the issuing agency or their agencies not intended to have substantial future effect on the behavior of regulated parties, which would be internal, right? internal guidance. Internal executive branch legal advice or legal opinions addressed to the executive branch officials. Significant guidance document means a guidance document that may reasonably be anticipated to lead to an annual effect on the economy of 100 million or more and adversely affect the material way the economy, a sector of the economy, productivity, competition, jobs, the environment, public health and safety, or state, local, or tribal governments or communities. Basically, it's just saying, hey, you guys got to get this in order, and this stuff only applies to certain people, and we need to get you back in line with what you're supposed to be doing. But again, these are guidance documents or regulations, so let's go on to the next one that's very similar. Executive order on promoting the rule of law through transparency and fairness in civil administrative enforcement and adjudication. The rule of law requires transparency. Regulated parties must know in advance the rules by which the federal government will judge their actions. The Administrative Procedures Act 5 was enacted to provide that administrative policies affecting individual rights and obligations be promulgated pursuant to certain state procedures, so as to avoid the inherently arbitrary nature of unpublished and ad hoc determinations. Hey, that actually had to go to the Supreme Court there, huh? 1974. Freedom of Information Act, America's landmark transparency law, amended the APA to further advance this goal. Freedom of Information Act, as amended, now generally requires that agencies publish in Federal Register their substantive rules of general applicability, statements of general policy, and interpretations of law that are generally applicable to both formulated and adopted by the agency. Freedom of Information Act prohibits an agency from adversely affecting a person with a rule or policy that is not so published, except to the extent that the person has actual and timely notice of the terms of the rule or policy. Unfortunately, departments and agencies in the executive branch have not always complied with these requirements. In addition, some agency practices with respect to enforcement actions and adjudications under the APA's goals of promoting accountability and ensuring fairness. Imagine that, corruption. Agencies shall act transparently and fair with respect to all affected parties, as outlined in this order, when engaged in civil, administrative enforcement or adjudication. No person is to be subjected to a civil, administrative enforcement action or adjudication absent prior public notice of both the enforcing agency's jurisdiction over the particular conduct and the legal standards applicable to that conduct. Moreover, the federal government should, where feasible, foster greater private sector cooperation and enforcement, promote information sharing with the private sector, and establish predictable outcomes for private conduct. Agencies shall afford regulated parties the safeguards described in this order, above and beyond those that the courts have interpreted the Due Process Clause of the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution to impose. Right? Basically kind of some of the same stuff here, right? So here we go. I'm going to jump into this last executive order here. And I know I brought this up the other day, but it was Monday. Okay. But this is a good one. This is where we're at right now. November 2nd, 2020. Okay. By the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution and laws of the United States, understand the history and principles of the founding of the United States in 1776. Understand the history and principles of the founding of the United States in 1776. And through this, form a more perfect union. It is hereby ordered as follows. The American founding envisioned a political order in harmony with the designs of the laws of nature and of nature's God. seeing the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as embodied in and sanctioned by natural law and its traditions. The formation of a republic around these principles marked a clear departure from previous forms of government, securing rights through a form of government that derives its legitimate power from the consent of the governed. Throughout its national life, our republic's exploration of the full meaning of these principles has led it through the ratification of a constitution, civil war, the abolition of slavery, Reconstruction, and a series of domestic crises and world conflicts. Those events establish a clear historical record of an exceptional nation dedicated to the ideas and ideals of its founding. Against this history, in recent years, a series of polemics, grounded in poor scholarship, has vilified our founders and our founding, despite the virtues and accomplishments of this nation. Many students are now taught in school to hate their own country and to believe that the men and women who built it were not heroes, but rather villains. This radicalized view of American history lacks perspective, obscures virtues, twists motives, ignores or distorts facts, and magnifies flaws, resulting in the truth being concealed and history disfigured. Failing to identify, challenge, and correct this distorted perspective could fray and ultimately erase the bonds that knit our country and culture together. The recent attacks on our founding have highlighted America's history related to race. These one-sided and divisive accounts too often ignore or fail to properly honor and recollect, the great legacy of the American national experience. Our country's valiant and successful effort to shake off the curse of slavery and to use the lessons that struggle to guide our work toward equal rights for all citizens in the present. Viewing America as an irredeemable and systemically racist country cannot account for the extraordinary role of the great heroes of the American movement against slavery and for civil rights. A great moral endeavor that from Abraham Lincoln to Martin Luther King Jr. was marked by religious fellowship, goodwill, generosity of heart, and emphasis on our shared principles and an inclusive vision for the future. As these heroes demonstrated, the path to a renewed and confident national unity is through a rediscovery of a shared identity rooted in our founding principles. A loss of national confidence in these principles would place rising generations in jeopardy of crippling self-doubt, could cause them to abandon faith in the common story that binds us to one another across our differences. Without our common faith in the equal right of every individual American to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, authoritarian visions of government and society could become increasingly alluring alternatives to self-government based on the consent of the people. Thus, it is necessary to provide Americans, young people, access to what is genuinely inspiring and unifying in our history, as well as to the lessons imparted by the American experience of overcoming great national challenges. This is what makes possible the informed and honest patriotism that is essential for a successful republic. A restoration of American education grounded in the principles of our founding that is accurate, honest, unifying, inspiring, and ennobling must ultimately succeed at the local level. Parents and local school boards must be empowered to achieve greater choice and variety in curriculum at the state and local levels. The role of the federal government is to protect and preserve state and local control over the curriculum, program of instruction, administration, and personnel of educational institutions, schools, and school systems. Indeed, that is why my administration rejects the Common Core curriculum and all efforts to have the federal government impose a national curriculum or national standards in education. Vigorous participation in local government has always been America's laboratory of liberty and a key to what makes us exceptional. The best way to preserve the story of America's founding principles is to live it in action by local communities, reasserting control of how children receive patriotic education in their schools. So, within 120 days of the day of this order, the Secretary of Education shall establish the Department of Education, the President's Advisory 1776 Commission. 1776 Commission better enable a rising generation to understand the history and principles of the founding of the United States in 1776 and to strive to form a more perfect union. This is a factory reset, folks. We are going back to 1776, the foundation. Right? Isn't that what it says? Pretty much, right? That's what's happening. We're going back, right? To 1776 here. Now, oh, I hate to do this to you guys. I am going to take a small break and I'll be right back. I don't know what to put on the screen for you, but here's a nice website. I love it. This is a good read. I'm going to come back and go over this. Unless you got a video I can play. Actually, I think I do have a video that we can play, huh? Where was that video? That would be... Oh, that's not the right one. Maybe. Nope. Let me see. Come on. Why is it not letting me? That's weird. Hmm. What is going on here? Yes, I know my mic is on. I'm trying to look for a video, but something's not right here. Because it should. Bear with me, folks. Oh, why? Oh, wait. Do we already have that up right here? Looking for this video to play real quick. There it is. And I'm going to put that right here. So I can pull that up over here. Uh-oh. Okay, I'm going to come right back to that. I want to. Oh, it's been removed. Of course it was. Yup. All right, so going back to this, I'll be right back. Okay. So this was right before pre-1776 here that we were having some issues, right? Back then we were separating from Great Britain, right? Does everybody remember that part of history? So, let's see. For possible for men who exercise their reason to believe that the divine author of the existence intended a part of the human race to hold an absolute property in and unbounded power over others, marked out by his infinite goodness and wisdom as the objects of legal domination never rightfully resistible, however severe and oppressive, the inhabitants of these colonies might at least require from the Parliament of Great Britain some evidence that this dreadful authority over them has been granted to that body. But a reverence for our Creator, principles of humanity, and the dictates of common sense here, we got to have some common sense here, must convince all those who reflect upon the subject that government was instituted to promote the welfare of mankind and ought to be administered for the attainment of that end. The legislature of Great Britain, however, stimulated by an inordinate passion for a power not only unjustifiable, but which they know to be peculiarly reprobated by the very constitution of that kingdom, and desperate of success in any mode of contest, where regard should be had to truth, law, or right, have at length, deserting those, attempted to effect their cruel and impolitic purpose of enslaving these colonies by violence, and have thereby rendered it necessary for us to close with their last appeal from reason to arms. This is the reason why we have the right to keep and bear arms right here. Yet, however blinded that assembly may be by their intemperate rage for unlimited domination, so to cite justice and the opinion of mankind, we esteem ourselves bound by obligations of respect to the rest of the world to make known the justice of our cause. Our forefathers, inhabitants of the island of Great Britain, left their native land to seek on these shores a residence for civil and religious freedom. At the expense of their blood, at the hazard of their fortunes, without the least charge of to their country from which they removed, by unceasing labor and by unconquerable spirit, they effected settlements in the distant and unhospitable wilds of America, then filled with numerous and warlike barbarians. Societies or governments vested with perfect legislatures were formed under charters from the crown, and an harmonious intercourse was established between the colonies and the kingdom from which they derived their origin. Now I'll go back to the first charter of Virginia. As Virginia, Jamestown, Virginia, was actually established in 1603 with the first charter of Virginia in 1606. That's before 1620, the Mayflower. So some of you may remember being taught the Mayflower, which is 1620. As you can see here, or well, not see here, but as I've just previously discussed, that 1606 was the first charter of Virginia. So there's 14 years of history of law prior to the Mayflower. So let's see, vested with the land of the kingdom which they derive their origin. The mutual benefits of this union became in a short time so extraordinary as to excite astonishment. It is universally confessed that the amazing increase of wealth, strength, and navigation of the realm arose from this source. And the minister, who so wisely and successfully directed the measures of Great Britain in the late war, publicly declared that these colonies enabled her to triumph over her enemies. Towards the conclusion of that war, it pleased our sovereign to make a change in his counsels. From that fatal moment, the affairs of the British Empire began to fall into confusion, and gradually sliding from the summit of glorious prosperity to which they had been advanced by the virtues and abilities of one man, are at length distracted by the convulsions that now shake it to the deepest foundations. The new ministry, finding the brave foes of Britain, though frequently defeated, yet still contending, took up the unfortunate idea of granting them a hasty peace, and then subduing her faithful friends. Wrong mouse. These devoted colonies were judged to be in such a state, a state of being, as to present victories without bloodshed, and all the easy emoluments of statutable plunder, the uninterrupted tenure of their peaceable and respectful behavior from the beginning of colonization, their dutiful, zealous, and useful services during the war, though so recently and amply acknowledged in the most honorable manner by His Majesty, by the late King, and by Parliament, could not, that's my other mouse, okay, could not save them from the mediated innovations. Parliament was influenced to adopt the pernicious project, and assuming a new power over them, have in the course of 11 years given such decisive specimens of the spirit and consequences attending this power as to leave no doubt concerning the effects of acquiescence under it. They have undertaken to give and grant our money without our consent, though we have ever exercised an exclusive right to dispose of our own property. Statutes have been passed for extending the jurisdiction of courts of admiralty and vice admiralty beyond their ancient limits. Remember, this is the declaration for the causes and necessities of taking up arms. Statutes have been passed for extending the jurisdiction of courts of admiralty and vice admiralty beyond their ancient limits. Remember, Congress did the same exact thing in 1845. They extended admiralty jurisdiction onto the land again, beyond their ancient limits. Again. For depriving us of the accustomed and estimable privilege of trial by jury in cases affecting both life and property. How many children are taken out there without the consent of a jury? All of them. I don't know of any cases where they go to a trial by jury to remove children. You know, these CPS courts and stuff, they don't go to a trial by jury. That's that extending admiralty jurisdiction and vice admiralty beyond their ancient limits. And for suspending the legislature of one of the colonies, for interdicting all commerce. Like, well, you're a driver because you're driving. No, a driver is one who acts in interstate and foreign commerce. We're still in the private. Not all commerce is under the control of government. Only interstate and foreign commerce is the Commerce Clause. That's the power. See Federalist 45 on that one. And for altering fundamentally the form of government established by charter and secured by acts of its own legislature solemnly confirmed by the Crown, for exempting the murderers of colonists from legal trial and in effect from punishment, for erecting in a neighboring province acquired by the joint arms of Great Britain and America a despotism dangerous to a very existence, and for quartering soldiers upon the colonists in times of profound peace. It also has been resolved in Parliament that colonists charged with committing certain offenses shall be transported to England to be tried. But why should we enumerate our injuries in detail? By one statute, it is declared that Parliament can, of right, make laws to bind us in all cases whatsoever. What is to defend us against so enormous, so unlimited a power? Not a single man of those who assume it is chosen by us or is subject to our control or influence. But on the contrary, they are all of them exempt from the operation of such laws. And an American revenue, if not diverted from the ostensible purposes for which it is raised, would actually lighten their own burdens in proportion as they, as they increase ours. We say the misery to which such despotism would reduce us. We for 10 years insistently and effectually besieged the throne as supplicants. We reasoned, we remonstrated with Parliament in the most mild and decent language. Okay? That's where we're at today, guys. So now, I'm going to go into this debunk this whole sovereign citizen thing. Okay? Here we go. So Idaho Code here, right? Ethics in government, formation of public policy. That's right, they make policy. They don't make law. People of the state of Idaho creating the instruments of government that serve them. Oh, that paper. Government is a piece of paper. And they're supposed to serve the people, right? It says the people, not the citizens. Do not yield their sovereignty to the agencies so created. Wait a minute. What do you mean they don't yield their sovereignty to the agencies so created? Sovereignty, the people are sovereign. Well, actually, God is the sovereign, and God created mankind, right? And endowed mankind with certain unalienable rights. Sovereignty. And no matter whatever those agencies make, it doesn't matter. Our rights aren't up for a vote. That's not what we instituted government for. We instituted government to secure these rights from infringement. Therefore, the legislature finds and declares that it is the policy of this state that the formation of public policy is public business and shall not be conducted in secret. Okay. And to reiterate this, we got Washington. We'll expound on this, right? Washington state legislature here. People of the state do not yield their sovereignty to the agencies that serve them. Well, there's that sovereignty again. Notice it doesn't say sovereign citizens, because sovereign citizen doesn't exist. The people have sovereignty. Citizens are those that are bound by the Constitution. Whoops. So that's why sovereign citizen is an oxymoron, because those who take an oath and be bound by the Constitution to support it, they have to be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution. They become a citizen and they give up their sovereignty in exchange for privileges and immunities to receive those emoluments of that office, those stipends or subsidies. The people, in delegating authority, do not give their public servants the right to decide what is good for the people to know and what is not good for them to know. Like, I don't know, who their choice of assistants of counsel is. I mean, that is in the Sixth Amendment. It says that the people have the right to the assistance of counsel. It does not say we have the right to be represented by a member of the bar. Uh-oh. Yeah, the actual letter of the law, what it actually says. But I'm gonna continue going. I got a lot more here. The people insist on remaining informed that they may maintain control over the instruments that they have created. This chapter shall be liberally construed and its exemptions narrowly construed. In other words, oh, well, this doesn't really apply because this, no. Because guess what else it says here? To promote this public policy and to assure that the public interest will be fully protected in the event of a conflict between the provisions of this chapter and any other act, the provisions of this chapter shall govern. That's right. Because the people have sovereignty, our rights, and the right to be free from government interference into our personal private lives. That's none of government's business. We have the right to be secure. Right back to the proclamation there, reestablishing the rule of law, the Declaration of Independence, Constitution of the United States of America, and the Bill of Rights. We have the right to be secure from unlawful governmental interference, searches, and seizures. It's almost like we've been through it before, right? Now, go to the Body of Liberties of the Massachusetts Colony in New England, 1641. Let me show you how old the right is. The right to the assistance of counsel, not to be represented by a member of the bar. Okay? Every man that findeth himself unfit to plead his own cause in any court shall have liberty to employ, and that's employ. Okay? Any man against whom the court doth not accept. In other words, the court, it's not up to the court to accept it or not. To help him, provided he give him no fee or reward for his pains. Okay? But this is in 1641. But there it is established that every man has the right, shall have liberty. See, liberty is a lot more than just personal liberty and the power of locomotion, walking around. No, liberty of conscience, liberty this, liberty that. Liberty is huge. There's lots of different things under liberty. And one of them is we are at liberty to choose who our assistance of counsel is. That's a right retained by the people. It is enumerated in the Sixth Amendment, the Bill of Rights. I don't see how anybody cannot read that and comprehend that you have the right to the assistance of counsel. But I'm going to share some more because this ain't it. Oh, did I lose it? I must have. Oh, here we go. Now, see, I'm actually going to pull something else up right here real quick. Ready? When was the American Bar Association founded? Whoops. August 21st, 1878. What did we ever do before August 21st, 1878? For assistance of counsel from clear back in 1641 and all the way through to the Bill of Rights of 1689, or pardon me, 1789. Wait a minute. If the Sixth Amendment, 1789, right? Or was it 1791? 1789. Yeah, 1789. Okay. Is one of the rights that was retained by the people. It is enumerated in there, the right to the assistance of counsel. So what did we ever do for a assistance of counsel if the American Bar Association wasn't even created until 1878? For 80 some years, what did we do? What did we ever do before the bar was here? Oh my gosh, what did we do? Huh. Well, let's go back to the common law, contracts. And there shall be no law impairing the obligations of a contract, because we all have the power to contract is unlimited. And there shall be no law, none, zero, not even color of law, that can come in conflict with the contract, with the exception of fraud. So we did what's called a power of an attorney. Now, see, this is where we've been lied to, the word salad. An attorney is the prosecutor, the moving party, prosecuting attorney, to attorn ye, to attorn you. To attorn is to take from one man and give to another. And we all have the right to prosecute our own claims. That's Wisconsin Constitution, Article 1, Section 21. We all have the right to prosecute our own claims, or we can select somebody else to do it for us. That's enumerated right over there. And we always have the saving clause there. The Ninth Amendment, hey, if it's not enumerated here, there are other rights that are not enumerated here that are retained by the people, and they shall not be denied or disparaged. So people out there saying sovereign citizen, that's an attempt to deny and disparage the right, because the people have sovereignty. Citizens are the elected officials or those appointed into a position of public trust, and they have to be bound by the Constitution. The people in the private are not bound by the Constitution because they don't receive anything therefrom. That's Hale versus Henkel. Covered that one too. So here it is, Uniform Power of Attorney Act. This comes from the common law, by the way. Here's the statutory form of power of attorney. Idaho. A document substantially in the following form may be used to create a statutory form power of attorney that has the meaning and effect prescribed in this chapter. This power of attorney authorizes another person, your agent. Oh, wait a minute. This would be agent and principal. Agency practice here, folks. To make decisions concerning your property for you. The principal. Your agent can make decisions and act with respect to your property, including your money. Wait, money is property? So are our rights. Remember, our rights are an aggregate of property is an aggregate of guaranteed rights. That would be that 60-page report of the Commission on Unalienable Rights or Unalienable Rights. Page 13 and 14 there, where it talks about our rights or our property. Whoops. You don't want us to know this stuff, right? Whether or not you're able to act for yourself. The meaning of authority over subjects listed on this form is explained in the Uniform Power of Attorney Act 1259. Power of attorney does not authorize the agent to make health care decisions for you. Okay, so health care is outside the subject matter of power of attorney, but there is a different power of an attorney for that one. But I'm going to go with this specific one here because this is the basic, durable power of attorney. In fact, you become the attorney. Now, the other word there is lawyer. One who is knowledgeable on the law, one who speaks the law is a law sayer. Neither one of those terms have anything to do with the American Bar Association or the Crown Temple Bar, the International Bar Association. You should select someone you trust and serve as your agent. The agent's authority will continue until your death unless you revoke the power of attorney or the agent resigns. Your agent is entitled to reasonable compensation unless you state otherwise in the special instructions. Now, this is what's been changed since 1641, because every man has the right to contract his labor as he sees fit. And the government doesn't have any authority over that. None. Zero. We're talking about a right, like the right to contract, and there shall be no law. None. Okay? So make sure that you know that if you do a power of attorney with somebody, that you're giving them that power to act just as you would, exactly in the same manner as you would, as your agent acting on behalf of the principal. This is how we've done that assistance of counsel for hundreds of years prior to the creation and shit made up from the bar, infiltrating our form of government. They're in the legislative branch, executive branch, and judicial branch. What's going on there? Uh-oh. All right, so what does this say here? Your agent is entitled to reasonable compensation unless you state otherwise in the special instructions. This form provides a designation of one agent. If you wish to name more than one agent, you may name a co-agent in the special instructions. Co-agents are not required to act together unless they include the requirement of the special instructions. So you get to create the terms and conditions of the contract. Plain and simple. This power of attorney becomes effective immediately unless you state otherwise in special instructions. Okay. I'm going to jump to the next one because this is where it really just hammers it down. The authority. Now I'm going to back up and show you what I'm looking at here. Oh. There we go. These are all the different sections of under the uniform power of attorney. Huh. You go to real property, tangible personal property, stocks and bonds, commodities and options, banks and other financial institutions, operation of an entity or business, insurance and annuities, estates, trust, and other beneficial interests. What's this? Claims and litigation? Huh. Let's take a look at that. Unless the power of attorney otherwise provides, language in a power of attorney granting general authority with respect to claims and litigation authorizes the agent to perform any lawful act on behalf of the principal in connection with claims and litigation, including 1. Assert and maintain before a court or administrative agency a claim for relief, cause of action, counterclaim, offset, recoupment, or defense, including an action to recover property or other things of value, recover damages sustained by a principal, eliminate or modify tax liability, or seek injunction, specific performance, or other relief, bring an action to determine adverse claims, intervene in litigation, and seek to act as amicus curiae. So for those of you who don't understand that, you might want to go look that up. Seek an attachment, garnishment, order of arrest, or other preliminary, provisional, or intermediate relief, and use an available procedure to effect or satisfy a judgment, order, or decree. Perform any lawful act, including make or accept a tender or offer of judgment or admission of facts, submit a controversy on or agreed statement of facts, consent to examination before trial, and bind the principal in litigation. Submit to alternative dispute resolution, settle and propose or accept a compromise. That would be that other process out there, that alternative dispute resolution. Waive the issuance and service of process upon the principal, accept service of process, right? So hey, instead of sending it to him, send it to me. I'm the power of attorney over here. I'm the agent acting on behalf of the principal. Appear for the principal. Designate persons upon which process directed to the principal may be served. Execute and file or deliver stipulations on the principal's behalf. Verify pleadings. Seek appellate review. Procure and give surety and indemnity bonds. Contract and pay for preparation and printing of records and briefs. Receive, execute, and file or deliver a consent, waiver, release, confession of judgment, satisfaction of judgment, notice, agreement, or other instrument in connection with the prosecution, settlement, or defense of a claim or litigation. Notice it doesn't say just for criminal or just for civil or except for criminal or except only civil. No, any. That's why it's the word any. Okay? Act for the principal with respect to bankruptcy or insolvency, whether voluntary, involuntary, concerning the principal of some other person, or with respect to the reorganization, receivership, or application for the appointment of a receiver or trustee, which affects an interest in the principal property of the other thing of value. You can pay a judgment, award, or order against the principal, or a settlement made in connection with litigation or alternative dispute resolution, receive money, or another thing of value paid in settlement, or as proceeds of a claim or litigation. Not done yet. Just getting warmed up. Okay? So, I mean, how else are you going to do arrests, warrant for arrest, if that ain't criminal? That's what it said in there, make arrests. You see, we're claims and litigation, this is criminal and civil. Mostly criminal though, right? Because the rest of this would be more like the civil stuff. Stocks and bonds, property, estates, trust. This claims and litigation area here, that's the criminal side of things. Because that's why it has the word arrest in there. It's criminal. I mean, you got taxes and gifts, retirement plans. I mean, programs or civil or military service. You know, where's the clear distinction between criminal and civil here? And I'm going to go back over here and show you. When they put in here, look at that. See this? Right there. Check mark that box. Claims and litigation. Power of an attorney in fact. Or how about all preceding subjects? I mean, why is the motion to dismissal a failure to state a claim for which relief can be granted if it isn't a claim? Under a criminal complaint, you can do a motion to dismiss for failure to state a claim for which relief can be granted, because claims is how it's done, through a complaint. And we make claims of damages. And then we get to litigate those claims. I don't know how people, after watching this and reading this, can't comprehend that this is how we exercise the right to the assistance of counsel. But I'm going to move on to some more good stuff. More good stuff. Right here. Oh, where is it? Where's my PDF stuff? This one? No, that's Chrome. Oh, there we go. All right, so I'm going to jump here into the law. Is this the Law of Nations one? Yep, this is the Law of Nations, written by Amrita Patel. In the very beginning, close to the beginning of the book here. This here's the preliminaries, right? idea and general principles of the law of nations. Nations or states are bodies politic, societies of men united together for the purpose of promoting their mutual safety and advantage by the joint effort of their combined strength. Such a society has her affairs in her interest. She deliberates and takes resolutions in common. And becoming a moral person who possesses an understanding and will particular to herself and is susceptible of obligations and rights. To establish on a solid foundation the obligations and rights of nations is the design of this work. The law of nations is the science which teaches the rights subsisting between nations or states and the obligations correspondent to those rights. In the treatise, it will appear in what manner states as such ought to regulate their actions. We shall examine the obligations of a people as well towards themselves as towards other nations, and by that means we shall discover the rights which result from those obligations. Commerce, right? Well, let's look at this one. In what light nations or states are to be considered? Nations being composed of men naturally free and independent, and who, before the establishment of civil societies, lived together in a state of nature. Not the state of Idaho, not the state of Penn. We lived in a state of being, a state of nature. Nations or sovereign states are to be considered as so many free persons living together in the state of nature. It is a settled point with writers on the natural law that all men inherit from nature a perfect liberty and independence, of which they cannot be deprived without their own consent. We'll all be darned. In a state, the individual citizens do not enjoy them fully and absolutely because they have made a partial surrender of them to the sovereign. Boom, right there. There's a difference between the free inhabitants, the people, and citizens. Like I said, citizens give up their sovereignty in exchange for them emoluments. And you surrender that to the people, and we give you exchange privileges and immunities. You don't have rights. Well, you still have the basic fundamental rights, but you're not granted rights. They're privileges to serve in the community and receive a just compensation pursuant to the contract. Article 6, Clause 3. Okay. But it's a settled point here, right? Of which they cannot be deprived without their own consent. In a state, the individual citizens do not enjoy them fully and absolutely because they have made a partial surrender of them to the sovereign. But the body of the nation, the state, remains absolutely free and independent with respect to all other men, all other nations, as long as it has not voluntarily submitted to them. As men are subject to the laws of nature and has their union in civil society, cannot have exempted them from the obligation to observe those laws, since by that union they do not cease to be men, the entire nation whose common will to the laws of nature and is bound to respect them in all her proceedings. Well, that would be some sovereign citizen stuff, man. You can't be a sovereign citizen. You damn right you can't be a sovereign citizen. Remember, the people have sovereignty because all political power is inherent in the people. The citizens are those that are bound. I'm going to show you that. But I'm also going to go down here. Come on. What was that? I mean, this thing is this books, there's 3 books here. The Law of Nations, written by Amr D. Patel, is just loaded with great information. And remember, this was published right before our nation was created. Our founders used this book, and we still go off of this book. All nations use this book. Okay? This is a worldwide used book for all nations. This is considered international law. That's why it's called the Law of Nations. Let's see. I mean, this thing is just packed full of just limitations, right? Book 1, Chapter 1, of the state and of sovereignty. A nation or a state is, as has been said at the beginning of this work, a body politic, or a society of men united together for the purpose of promoting their mutual safety and advantage by their combined strength. From the very design that induces a number of men to form a society which has its common interests and which is to act in concert, it is necessary that there should be established a public authority to order and direct what is to be done by each in relation to the end of the association. This political authority is the sovereignty, and he or they who are invested with it are the sovereign. Well, that would be God is the sovereign, because God has all that power, and he gave it to mankind, because he created him, created the heavens and the earth. He created all of mankind in his image, right? Anybody got any proof to the contrary? It is evident that by the very act of civil or political association, each citizen subjects himself to the authority of the entire body. Wait a minute. How do we go from men, people, to citizen? Again, you have to comprehend what these words are. Once you get in law, the body politic, that political association, when you take that oath or affirmation. Okay. And see, here we get into some of them other words. Members. Members are members of the body politic. Member of the corporations. They only have jurisdiction over themselves. Huh. And everything that relates to the common welfare. The authority of all over each member, therefore, essentially belongs to the body politic or state, but the exercise of that authority may be placed in different hands according as society may have ordained. Why do you think we call ordained and established? If the body of the nation, what kinds of okay. If the body of the nation keeps in its own hands the empire or the right to command, it is a popular government, a democracy. If it entrusts it to a certain number of citizens, to a senate, it establishes a aristocratic republic. Whoop. Wait a minute. It entrusted into a certain number of citizens to a senate. It establishes an aristocratic republic. Finally, if he confines the government to a single person, the state becomes a monarchy. Notice that it says these 3 kinds of government may variously combined and modified. Notice that this was the only 3 types of governments we really had back then. Our founders created a one-of-a-kind government in its existence today. There is absolutely no other form of government that is like our government that our founders created. See, if the nation keeps its own hands, the empire or the right to command, it is a popular government, a democracy. So this is why they keep saying we're a democracy. But then you go look at if it entrusts a certain number of citizens to a Senate. So what do we have? We have the House of Representatives and the Senate, or the whole House, because the entire House consists of the House of Representatives and the Senate. But we don't have a aristocratic republic either, or aristocratic republic. We have a confederate republic where the people have all the power and the citizens are public servants, and they do not get to dictate to the people through a democracy. And that is the difference between a democracy and a republic. See, these are three different types of governments: a democracy, an aristocratic republic, or a monarchy. So which one did we create out of all three of these? Well, it's a little bit of all three, to be honest. The people retain all sovereignty. Because isn't that what it says? Ethics in government. And it fundamental principle that all political power is inherent in the people. So the body politic is in the hands of the people. And we do most certainly have the power to command it, the right to alter, reform, or abolish anything at any time we deem it necessary. And no special privileges or immunities shall ever be granted that cannot be altered, revoked, or repealed by the legislature. And they're all public servants. So, So this is why we have to know what our form of government actually is, and it's a confederate republic. Plain and simple. It's not one of these three. It's a completely separate, made up government, put in writing, and it was ordained and established. But like it said, these three kinds of government may be variously combined and modified. We shall not here enter into the particulars, this subject belonging to the public universal law. Nor shall we examine which of those different kinds of government is the best. Well, we know that this is the best form of government we've ever had in the history of all of mankind, as far as I know. So I'm going to go down to section 30 here, because section 30 and section 34, ooh, boy, this just lays down the smackdown here. All right. And this is actually under what was this under? Right here. Of the Constitution of a state and the duties and rights of the nation in this respect. Constitution of the state meaning state of being. I mean, this is just full of good stuff, but I have certain sections of these that I refer to that, committed to memory here. The Constitution and laws of a state are the basis of the public tranquility, the firmest support of political authority, and a security for the liberty of the citizens. But this Constitution is a vain phantom, and the best laws are useless if they are not rigorously observed. The nation ought then to watch very attentively, in order to render them equally respected by those who govern, and by the people destined to obey. Not all of the people are destined to obey the public policy. As I showed before, there has to be a contract there, and only the parties, only the agents. Trump is making that very clear in those executive orders. To attack the Constitution of the state and to violate its laws is a capital crime against society. Treason, capital offense, punishable by death. And if those guilty of it are invested with authority, they add to this crime a perfidious abuse of the power which they are entrusted. The nation ought constantly to repress them with its utmost vigor and vigilance, as the importance of the case requires. It is very uncommon to see the laws and constitution of a state openly and boldly opposed. Yeah, it should be pretty uncommon, but not in this day and age, right? It is, listen, folks, it is against silent and gradual attacks that a nation ought to be particularly on its guard. Sudden revolutions strike the imaginations of men. They are detailed in history. Their secret springs are developed, but we overlook the changes that insensibly happen by a long train of steps that are but slightly marked. Gee, I think the Declaration of Independence says a long train of abuses. Wonder where they got that verbiage from. Right there, right out of the Law of Nations. It's almost like they read this books, all 2,000 pages of it. But we overlook the change and insensible happen, a long train of steps that are but slightly marked. It would be rendering nations an important service to shew from history how many states have thus entirely changed their nature and lost their original constitution. This would awaken the attention of mankind. I've been trying to awake Americans, at least Americans, wherever this sucker goes out to. I've been trying to awake the masses of people for years on here. Impressed thenceforward with this excellent maxim. There's a maxim. No less essential in politics than in morals. Principis obsta. They would no longer shut their eyes against innovations, which, though inconsiderable in themselves, may serve as steps to mount to higher and more pernicious enterprises. Footnote number 9 actually is right there. Resist the first advances. We're supposed to resist this stuff from the beginning of it. So, just want to reiterate, we are a Confederate republic. We are not a democracy. Rights cannot be put to a vote. Plain and simple. It's already in the writings. It's in the books. They called it a Confederate republic, and that is why it's called a more perfect union, because a union is a league of friendship. A league of friendship is a confederacy. We are, in fact, a Confederate republic. Okay, and then I'm going to go down here to number 34. Love number 4. Here again, a very important question presents itself. It essentially belongs to the society to make laws both in relation to the manner in which it desires to be governed and to the conduct of the citizens. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. The conduct of the citizens. This is called the legislative power to make policy regarding right back to American Jurisprudence, Volume 16, Constitutional Law, Section 2, that statutes are for government civil conduct. It is supposed to be policy to the conduct of the citizens, them. Government civil conduct, not the people in the private. So the nation must entrust the exercise of it to the prince or to an assembly or to that assembly and the prince jointly. Now remember, this is referring to those three types of governments back then, which our founders created, again, the one-of-a-kind form of government here. And so what did we have? We have an assembly. We also have the prince. It's called a governor. But they're all servants. We didn't give them titles of nobility, of prince, or parliament. We made them citizens, and we made them public servants on purpose. So, let's see. Who have then a right to make new laws and repeal old ones? Well, not in our form of government. The only way to actually make law in our form of government is through a convention, and then it has to go back to the states and be ratified. And within the states, it's the same convention process to make law, and it has to be submitted to the people and ratified by the people, or it doesn't pass. Otherwise, it's policy, and it only applies to them because the people do not yield their sovereignty to the agencies so created, fundamentally and principally. Okay? But see, what does it say here? It is asked whether the power extends to the fundamental laws, whether they may change the constitution of the state. Now pay attention. The principles we have laid down. Remember, law is that which is laid down, ordained, or established. So we're talking about the principles that we have laid down lead us to decide with certainty that the authority of these legislators does not extend so far, and that they ought to consider the fundamental laws as sacred if the nation has not, in very express terms, given them power to change them. And we didn't. And in fact, it's already been to the Supreme Court, and we'll go right to American Jurisprudence, Volume 15, Civil Rights, Section 2. Natural rights and civil rights have absolutely nothing to do with the establishment, support, or management of government. Our form of government was laid down, ordained, and established to secure our God-given rights as our property and are regarded as unalienable and outside of the sphere of government control. I know a lot of people don't like that, but that's the way it is. That's the letter of the law, right back to 1776, which is exactly where we're going here real quick. Can guarantee you that's coming. I mean, unless some major catastrophic thing happens to this earth, this has already been set in motion. I showed you the executive orders, the proclamations, everything that's been laid out. And again, I want to make this very clear. I never followed QAnon. Sorry. I followed what Trump laid down, ordained, and established. No, actually, what he created his executive orders to execute the law. He didn't make law through his executive orders like other people are doing or have done. Every single one of his executive orders is to execute the law, and he cites the law in all of it. So I want to reiterate that again. I have never followed QAnon. And I'm not a sovereign citizen. It's a bunch of shit made up to deny and disparage the people's rights that have been retained by them, because we didn't give them the power over those rights. And here it is. That question was already asked and answered. So there's no real reason to try and rediscuss that, because we got to go back to the history of law. Here it is. For the constitution of a state ought to possess stability, and since that was first established by the nation, which afterwards entrusted certain persons with the legislative power, the fundamental laws are accepted from their commission. Hello. Natural rights come from God. Civil rights come through what's laid down, right? Or what we'd say in a monarchy, the common law. But that's where we have to understand the fundamental law is the common law, the law that's common to all, the common sense law. I mean, how would we have the Seventh Amendment that says suits at the common law exceeding the value of $20 if the common law was case law? Would that mean that we would go suits at case law? Suits at stare decisis? Clearly does not make any sense, does it? No, most certainly does not. It's not logic and it's not reasonable. And since that law was laid down prior to instituting government, because remember, government was instituted to secure these rights. So we clearly had to lay the law down prior to instituting government, right? Fundamentally and principally. It is visible that the society only intended to make provisions for having the state constantly furnished with laws suited to particular conjunctures, certain subject matter. And for that purpose, gave the legislature the power of abrogating the ancient civil and political laws that were not fundamental, the common law, and of making new ones. But nothing leads us to think that it meant to submit the Constitution itself or their will. In short, it is from the Constitution that those legislators derive their power. How then can they change it without destroying the foundation of their own authority? And that's exactly what I've said in court before. Oh, well, the Constitution doesn't apply in here. Well, then you don't exist. Because if the Constitution doesn't apply or exist in here, then your position of employment doesn't exist. Law of creation. Without the Constitution, your position of employment doesn't exist, fundamentally and principally. By the fundamental laws of England, would that be the common law of England? I'll be darned. The two houses of Parliament, in concert with the king, exercise the legislative power. But if the two houses should resolve to suppress themselves and to invest the king with full and absolute authority, certainly the nation would not suffer it. But see, that's a monarchy. We're not a monarchy. That's not how we do it here. But our form of government wasn't even thought of at this particular time. Well, clearly they were thinking about it. And who would dare to assert that they would not have a right to oppose it? But if the Parliament entered into a debate on making so considerable a change, and the whole nation was voluntarily silent upon it, this would be considered an approbation of the act of its representatives. But see, we fixed that in our form of government. We still call it treason. And it doesn't matter if it's 220 some years down the road and they're committing treason. It doesn't matter. We do a factory reset here, and we're going back to 1776. Have a nice day. Okay? So I'm going to go over here to the Commentaries on the Constitution by Joseph Story. It's a good read. We're going to talk about them titles of nobility. Article 1, Section 9, Clause 8. No titles of nobility or foreign emoluments here. What are we talking about? Because this is the Commentaries on the Constitution. Okay? The next clause is no title of nobility shall be granted by the United States, and no person holding any office of profit or trust under them shall, without the consent of Congress, accept any present, emolument, office, or title of any kind whatever from any king, prince, or foreign state. Esquire is a title of nobility from the English crown, the Crown Temple Bar, the International Bar Association, which American Bar Association is in conjunction with the International Bar Association, and then all our little individual state bar associations are under the American Bar Association. But wait a minute, that's a foreign emolument, and they're holding the title of nobility of Esquire from the King of England. Whoops. That's not supposed to exist. It says so right there, right in the Constitution. Why did our founders put that in there? Because they knew exactly who them new councils were that they were talking about in the Declaration for the Causes and Necessity of Taking Up Arms. So, let's check this out. This clause seems, when we're talking about clause, it's a clause of a contract. So, this clause seems scarcely to require even a passing notice. I mean, this should just be self-evident, guys. As a perfect equality in the basis of our institutions, state and national, the prohibition against the creation of any titles of nobility seems proper. Seems pretty frickin' proper to me. That no man or set of men are entitled to separate emoluments or privileges from the community. It's exactly what we're talking about here. No titles of nobility. All right, so prohibition against the creation of any titles of nobility seems proper, if not indispensable, to keep perpetually alive a just sense of this important truth. It is very important to know this truth. Distinctions between citizens in regard to rank. Oh, well, you've got to be a member of the bar to practice law. That's an unauthorized practice of law. By who? Unauthorized by who? Because I'm not aware of public servants being able to dictate to the people what my rights are, what your rights are, and our right to contract. And that's not supposed to exist in my form of government. Kick rocks right back over to England where you frickin' belong. Because we are fundamentally, principally in our state of being free and equal. Equal. England, equal. But look at what we say here, or Chief Justice Story has to say here. Distinctions between citizens in regard to rank would soon lay the foundation of odious claims. Now, I love this part. Oh, well, I can't right now. Odious claims. Okay? Odious. Them skanky claims. I love that one. But there's a bunch of synonyms that go along with odious. Look up odious. I'm going to pull that up when I get done with the screen share here on PDF files. And silently subvert the spirit of independence and personal dignity, which are so often proclaimed to be the best security of a Republican government. Notice he says Republican government, not a democracy. Remember the three forms of government? We're not a democracy. We're not an aristocracy. We're not a monarch. We're closer to an aristocracy than anything. But again, our founders created something totally different, and they laid down the law, and they created government. They ordained and established the law of the land, which instituted government. Okay? So, the other clause is to the acceptance of any emoluments, title, or office from foreign governments. I think England is a foreign government, isn't it not? No titles of nobility. But there's that word emolument there, emoluments. One I had a hard time saying before. Miss you, Chris. Whether in a practical sense it can produce a patriot. Listen up, people. A patriot will not be likely to be seduced from his duties to his country by the acceptance of any title of nobility, title, or present from a foreign power. This is why they made up the Foreign Agent Registration Act. They're all supposed to register as a foreign agent because they hold the title of nobility of Esquire. And when they take that title of nobility, they cease to be a citizen of the United States. And I'm going to show you Article the 13th, the original, that backs up this right here and is also prima facie evidence of why and proof of how we're supposed to make law. Because it would have been much easier for them to make a congressional act that says if you take a title of nobility, you cease to be a citizen of the United States and you can no longer hold any office of public trust under them or either of them. Imagine that our founders back then followed the letter of the law, followed due process of law, went to a constitutional convention on both the 11th, the 12th, and the 13th articles in addition to the Constitution and as an amendment. So they are not amendments. They are articles in addition to. But see, what does it say here? An intriguing or corrupt agent. Agent. Remember, I just covered that. Agent, principal, agent, principal. Aren't these members of the bar a foreign agent? Yes, they are. Will not be restrained from guilty machinations, those malicious designs of men that must be thwarted, in the service of a foreign state by such constitutional restrictions. Still, however, the provision is highly important as it puts it out of the power of any officer of the government to wear borrowed honors, your honor, which shall enhance his supposed importance abroad by a titular dignity at home. In other words, don't try to come in my government and claim some title of nobility and that you're above the people when you're a frickin' public servant. All men are created free and equal, fundamentally and principally. That is the law of this nation. And no man, especially as a public servant, has the authority to dictate to the people anything, including a frickin' mask. This shit's frickin' insane. It blows my mind. How many people out there do not even know the fundamental principle of we are free and equal? And we have the right to choose for ourselves whether or not we wear a mask or not, whether we decide to conceal or open carry arms. Because, right, the right to keep it wherever we want to keep it, whether it's concealed or open carry or under the bed or in the glove box, under the seat. That's none of your business, government public servant. Keep your nose in public business and under the subject matters that we delegated you to regulate. Policy, regulations, none of that's law. And it only applies to those that are bound by it. So far, it was lawfully created. Yeah, I have lots of passion for my Americans, and I am a patriot. And I'm sick of this crap. Right? A patriot will not be likely to be seduced from his duties to his country by the acceptance of any title or present from a foreign power. So are you a patriot? Are you an American? This crap of playing Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, those are all shit made up terms to cause divide. We have the law of the nation, that fundamental law, the common law, the law that is common to all, that's supposed to be common sense law, as the Declaration of Independence calls it, self-evident. Have you people lost your frickin' minds? You can't even comprehend the basic fundamental principles of the law of this nation? That no part of government or any man anywhere has any authority to dictate to another man anything. Seriously? Let's talk about the original Article the 13th. Why do they put in this here 13th Amendment, right? In January 1810, Senator Reed proposed the title of Nobility Amendment, History of Congress Proceedings to the Senate, page 529 to 530, if you want to go read it. Right there. On April 27th, 1810, the Senate voted to pass the 13th Amendment by a vote of 26 to 1. The House resolved in the affirmative 87 to 3. That damn near unanimous of both the House and the Senate in 1810. December 10th. And the resolve was sent to the states for ratification by December 10th, 1812. 12 of the required 13 states had ratified as follows: Maryland, December 25th, 1810. Kentucky, January 31st, 1811. Ohio, January 31st, 1811. Delaware, February 2nd, 1811. Pennsylvania, February 6th, 1811. New Jersey, February 13th, 1811. Vermont, October 21st or 24th, 1811. Tennessee, November 21st, 1811. Georgia, December 13th, 1811. North Carolina, December 23rd, 1811. Massachusetts, February 27th, 1812. New Hampshire, December 10th, 1812. Before a 13th state could ratify, the War of 1812 broke out and interrupted this very rapid move for ratification. But it was ratified. So, no record has been found that the state of Connecticut ever acted to either accept or reject this original 13th Amendment, yet it was published in 3 separate editions of the Public Statute Laws of the State of Connecticut as a part of the U.S. Constitution in 1821, 1824, 1835, Then, without record explanation, it mysteriously disappeared from subsequent editions prior to the Civil War between the states. However, printing by a legislature is prima facie evidence of a ratification, and it has been found to have been printed as part of the Constitution in this and many other states until around the Civil War period, when it mysteriously disappeared from subsequent printings. It was found to have been printed by the legislature of the state of the following: 1821, the Public Statute Laws of Connecticut, blah, 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 blah. So we look at it right here. Here's the Journal of the Senate. If any citizen of the United States, citizen, right? We know what a citizen is now? Okay. Shall accept, claim, receive, or retain any title of nobility or honor, your honor, or shall, without the consent of Congress, accept and retain any present, pension, office, or emolument of any kind whatever from any emperor, king, prince, or foreign power, such person shall cease to be a citizen of the United States and shall be incapable of holding any office of trust or profit under them or either of them. Because you're a foreign agent. And we knew, our founders knew back then what these people were like. Them barristers, them esquires, doing the bidding of the Roman Catholic Church, Crown Temple Bar. Well, that's some sovereign citizen stuff. Right. Here's the votes of it on the one. And look at that. What does that say? Article the 13th. Whoops. Why does that not say the 13th Amendment? Because they weren't. They were articles. Okay? Wake up, America. The bar has come in and fundamentally altered our form of government and has legislated for us in all cases whatsoever. Can any of you bar members out there tell me about one case that the legislature has not legislated for us? How about marriage? Oh, nope. You even created a whole subject matter jurisdiction under that and created a contract license. You converted that right into a privileged license, called it a marriage license with the state, a contract, and you created family law under domestic relations. I don't think we delegated that power to government. In fact, I'm pretty damn sure we didn't, because I can't seem to find it anywhere in the Constitution where we delegated private rights to government. So, how do we have clear back here in the day that says, if any citizen of the United States shall accept, claim, receive, da, 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 da. Oh, look, they even have the Declaration of Independence with it. Boy, that almost kind of seems like what Idaho publishes. The Declaration of Independence, Constitution of the United States of America, and the Idaho Constitution. The Bill of, I'm like, because that's the way it's supposed to be done. It's supposed to be published by the legislature of the state. How about the American Citizens Manual of Reference? Let's see, historical, statistical, topographical, and political view of the United States of North America and of the several states and territories. Let's see. We see that over there? ART. X3XIII. That's Article 13. And it says the same thing there, don't it? Amendments to the Constitution. President is the case of the death of other constitutional disability of the presidential. I believe that's out of this book right here, the Manual of References, of Reference. And that's out of New York. And that would be 1840. 1840, folks. State of Maine, 1825. What is an esquire? A title applied by attorneys to themselves, to officers of the court, to members of the bar, and others of ill repute. No one in the United States is entitled to it by law, and therefore it confers no distinction in law. In England, it is a title next above that of a gentleman and below a knight. Camden records 4 kinds of esquires, particularly regarded by the heralds. Okay, there you go. There's your 4 types of esquires. Nobility, an order of men. Whoa, wait a minute. We're not supposed to have different ranks of men, except for in the military, right? But not out here. An order of men in several countries to whom privileges are granted at the expense of the rest of the people. Constitution of the United States provides that no state shall grant any title of nobility, and no person can become a citizen of the United States until he has renounced all titles of nobility. The Federalist number 84, 2 Story, Laws, U.S. 851. That's actually the one I just read from over just a story. Imagine that. There is not one in the Constitution today any general prohibition against any citizen whomsoever, whether in public or private life, except in any foreign title of nobility. But how about the court in Horst versus Moses of Alabama? Give the following description of the title of nobility. To confer a title of nobility is to nominate to an order of persons to whom privileges are granted at the expense of the rest of the people. It is not necessarily hereditary, and the objection to it arises more from the privileges supposed to be attached than to the otherwise empty title or order. These components are forbidden separately in the terms privilege, honor, and emoluments. All right. So now, let's go here for just a second, because we got them jackwagons out there that like to make them odious claims, right? So let's fix them odious claims. Watch this. But this is great. I love this. Odious, extremely unpleasant, repulsive. Revolting, repulsive, repellent, repugnant, disgusting, offensive. Objectionable, vile, foul, abhorrent, loathsome, nauseating, nauseous, sickening, hateful, detestable, execrable, abominable, monstrous, appalling, reprehensible, deplorable, insufferable, intolerable, unacceptable, despicable, contemptible, beyond the pale, unspeakable, poisonous, noxious, obscene, base, hideous, grisly, gruesome, horrendous, heinous, atrocious, awful, terrible, dreadful, frightful, obnoxious, unsavory, unpalatable, unpleasant, disagreeable, nasty, distasteful, off-putting, displeasing, ghastly, horrible, horrid, gross, putrid, sick-making, yucky, god-awful, beastly, bogging, skanky, loathsome, disgustful, scurvy, loathy. Do we get an idea how disgustful and skanky these bar members are, to have them odious claims that only them can practice law. We're not supposed to have monopolies either in our form of government. So what are we doing with the bar association? And since when does an association get to make law? Because the Idaho Code is not law. See Peterson versus Peterson. I mean, should be common sense. Code, C-O-D-E. Law, L-A-W. They're not the same. Not even close. So for the jackwagons out there that don't seem to think I know the law, that I don't know what my rights are because the rights are the law, and that I don't know anything about the history of law, considering you're the ones that ain't even freaking read any part of the law. You ain't read the Declaration of Independence. You ain't read the Constitution of the United States of America. You haven't read the Bill of Rights. You ain't read jack shit. And you want to be out there running your mouth about how people like me don't know the law and we're a bunch of sovereign citizens and constitutionalists. Might I remind you, I already debunked that crap in court for Tony Pellegrino in a motion of objection to the motion in limine, claiming sovereign citizen and constitutionalist arguments. And that prosecutor crapped his pants when it came time to hear the motion. No, never mind. Nope, don't want to hear that. Because we properly responded. Okay? And that would also be the same case, and at the same time, that I got to sit next to Tony Pellegrino for his trial by jury. Oh, but you got to have a license to practice law. Because that's what he said the first time I come in there. But he changed his tune after we filed the E-Clauses Practitioner's Judicial Report. The bar is a monopoly. We're challenging it as a monopoly, right? And you can't license the practice of law. And yet here I am today, have not been arrested for unauthorized practice of law. Why? All them complaints you guys have filed over the years, and not one of them. Not one. Why? Because we're not members of the club. We're not bound by your shit made up. And that's where we all need to get as Americans and patriots out here, is we're tired of this crap, of these shit made up color of law, color of authority, title of nobility holding esquires, practicing unauthorized practice of law, because that's not law. That would be unauthorized practice of law by the people. We didn't authorize titles of nobility to be in our form of government. So what are you doing in the legislature? What are you doing in the executive branch? What are you doing in the judicial branch? You don't belong there. You got to go to law school to practice law. Give me a frickin' break. Yeah, unauthorized practice of law, all right? You can't practice our color of law. That's right. And I don't. Practice the real law, the common law. Our rights that are our property, an aggregate of guaranteed rights. Those creator endowed rights, the law of nature, from nature's God. Not from the bar, not from a monopoly, not from a man or set of men who are not entitled to separate emoluments or privileges from the community. So, Of course, I really didn't get a chance to see any of your comments because I've been reading, right? See how reading actually means reading. So, um, we just need to learn this stuff, right? We need to, I don't know, claim, exercise, and then defend our rights, plain and simple. But see, you have to know what your rights are. You have to know where they come from, where it's written, how to articulate it, how to put it in writing in proper format and proper form, and properly file it, who it needs to be filed with. And that hasn't been happening for a very long time. And I'm telling you, it's like common sense simple. Not all this fancy other crap out there. It's pretty damn simple. But I tried. And I'll tell you what, I've done it. And it's happening. Not only in a CPS case, 2 days after filing the proper paperwork, notice of special appearance objecting to the personal jurisdiction, motion to dismiss, lack of personal jurisdiction. Your color of law does not personally apply to me. Wrong person. You ain't pulling that shit on me. Lack of subject matter jurisdiction. You ain't got subject matter jurisdiction over parental rights. That's at the common law. Nothing to do with government. Insufficiency of service, insufficiency of process, violated due process of law. You didn't properly serve a summons and a complaint, and your complaint was deficient. And then failure to state a claim for which relief can be granted. And a brief memorandum of law with points of authority. And 2 days later, the judge vacates the whole frickin' case. Come get your daughter. I vacated your case. So don't tell me that my paperwork doesn't work and that I haven't won anything, because I've won my own shit. Okay? I've already defeated the driving without privileges. Y'all seem to skip over that part in 2014. Right? You go to the wrong one and you show the one where I had a public defender who took it all the way to the Supreme Court, but I didn't at that time, didn't know all what I knew then on the next one. But I've been fighting, and I've been fighting, and I've been fighting for many years. Okay, this isn't something new to me. I've been in and out of the courts. I've been to jail. Yeah, I've got mug shots, right? But we're talking about corruption, bills of attainder, bills of pains and penalties. And I vowed to myself 25, almost 26 years ago that I wasn't going to let this happen to me again, that I was going to frickin' learn. And now it's come to the point where it's coming to a necessity to have to perform some duties here as an American, as a patriot, to help educate the masses and learn how to effectively defend myself. So, I've also beat the contempt of court for not paying child support with a member of the bar sitting right next to me who couldn't make those frickin' arguments that it deprives life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness to try and... Anyways, 2 different contempts of courts that I've defeated. Driving without privileges, defeated. Okay? Don't give me this frickin' crap that I ain't never won any case, that I ain't never won anything. Y'all don't know what the hell you're talking about. You're a bunch of frickin' liars. Plain and simple. You got to learn what your rights are, where they come from in law, and it's not really in law, at law. What is the common law? What is the law that is common to all? What are those rights that I have, that you have? And at no point in time can I exercise any of my rights and come over onto your rights. Nope, none, never, ever. At no point in time can I do that. But at no point in time can you use your rights to deprive me of mine, because it works both ways. So, fundamentally and principally, all men are created free and equal. That's the 2 + 2 = 4. I don't care about your opinion. That's a principle and a fact of law. Just like it's a fact of law that the people have sovereignty. Citizens are those that are bound by the Constitution as a public servant, and they give up their sovereignty in exchange for privileges and immunities. So for any one of them to claim that they still have rights to do whatever they want to do up there as a public servant, because servants don't have rights, they have privileges, that would be a sovereign citizen. So make sure you know that, folks. My fellow Americans and patriots out there, stand up for your rights. Get this frickin' knowledge. Quit wasting time. Nobody else is responsible for your education but you. But I'm here 2 hours and 52 minutes on a Friday night, because I'm not a partier. I don't do drugs. Lying sacks of shit out there. Right? Hey, look, even my dark circles have kind of gone away a little bit, huh? Yeah. I'm still having a hard time over here. I'm still grieving. Yeah, I know. Much love to my followers, my fellow Americans and patriots out there. I love you. I'm glad you're here. I'm very happy that you're here. Because without you, we ain't got nothing. And I'm saying it right now. If we don't get this education, get off our couch, get off our ass, and start getting out there and standing up and telling these people they do not have that authority, and in mass numbers, right? Without the threat of force and violence, right? But we need to have these discussions. We need to talk, and it needs to be civilly. Now, keep in mind, a belligerent man has his rights. And I'm very passionate, and I get very belligerent. But at no point in time do you disrespect your fellow man, right? And at no time, you have to remain in honor. You got to have them clean hands to claim your right to a cause of action. But you have every right to raise your voice, because that's a belligerent man. Don't cuss at him, right? Don't egg him on, right? Try to have a conversation. Use some logic and reason, folks. Don't get all crazy and wild out there. And that's about what we're about to do here in Idaho. Okay? We're about to have a little march, and we're going to take these paperwork around, and we're going to start having discussions on the local level with our businesses. And we're going to inform them. Here's the letter of the law. And we get it. We comprehend that you're getting pressure from these bad actors in government that are telling you, if you don't enforce these mask requirements, because it's not a mandate. Nowhere in there does it mandate. Not only that, a mandate comes from the judicial branch to a lower court. Mandates aren't used for out here against the people. It's not law. You can't make law through the judicial branch. So they're orders. They think they have the power to order us around. So what we need to do is we need to get with the people in our community and these businesses, and one, tell them to knock it off, or we're going to go and revoke their business license. But we also need to come and stand up with them for when these bad actors want to come and try and shut them down. So you got to do both parts, because these are our neighbors in our community that are doing business. So open up your private businesses and not these major conglomerate crap. They're trying to destroy the people. Stand up, go to work, open up your businesses, and start defending your rights. Tell these jackwagons they don't have that authority. Plain and simple, Idaho Constitution, Article 11, Section 7. They're all supposed to be bound by the Idaho Constitution. Corporations, public and private. Article 11, Section 8. You can't conduct your business practices in such a manner that violates our rights. Period. Okay? I don't care what the health department, what the governor says, what the mayor says. They're all servants. And we did not delegate them any authority over our natural rights or our civil rights. None. And this is how we're going to affect things. And it's happened. It's already happening here locally in Idaho. And I've been part of it. Twin Falls, Jerome, no mask mandates. In fact, I think it was the Southwest, or was it South Central? Southwest. Even one of the district health departments got shut down. Lawful notification letters, folks. The stuff that I've been teaching. It's in the educational series. All right. And I truly believe that's where we need to go, at your local level, where it's directly affecting you. Quit worrying about things nationally that there's absolutely really nothing that you can do. You can't do anything about that stuff. There's other people out there that are already on that. Sidney Powell, go pay attention. That's what I was actually trying to share with you. But that video's already been scrubbed. So it's probably a good thing I didn't even play, because they'd probably try to scrub this one too. Who knows? They may try to scrub this one. I just totally debunked this whole sovereign citizen crap. And I ain't even gotten into going after Southern Poverty Law Center and the jackwagon that used to run that, who got fired and disbarred. I want to say disbarred, but he was on the board, right? Oh, yeah. I could break out some shit on Southern Poverty Law Center, who's not in poverty, and it ain't a fucking law center. You want to talk about frauds? Just some freaking ramblings of jerkwads out there on one website. One website on the whole World Wide Web that talks about sovereign citizens. Really? Because I happen to look at I have 3 different Black's Law dictionaries on my shelf, and I can't seem to find sovereign citizen defined in any of those 3. So the 4th edition, the 6th edition, and the 9th edition, it doesn't exist. It's exactly what I put in my paperwork in Tony Pellegrino's case. I demand strict proof of his existence. The same thing with the state of Idaho thinks. Well, the state of Idaho is a fiction. It's an instrument of government, right? The body politic here. The Constitution. How in the hell can the Constitution think that Mr. Pellegrino is going to make sovereign citizen and constitutionalist arguments, considering it's a fiction? Figment of the imagination. Just some words written on a frickin' piece of paper. And you're going to tell me that the state of Idaho thinks? Well, if it can think, then it can speak and it can hear and it can take the stand. It can get sworn in under oath, under penalty of perjury. So help them God. Take the stand and answer questions, be cross-examined. No. The state of Idaho can't do that because it doesn't exist. It's a state of being. And that state of being is the people are grateful to Almighty God, right? For the blessings of liberty, do hereby establish this Constitution, right? To secure the blessings of liberty, do establish blah, 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 blah. That's the preamble to the Idaho Constitution. And then the other part of our state of being is being free and equal and having, that's Article 1, Section 1, and Article 1, Section 4, the liberty of conscience, right? We get to think for ourselves, our own constitution. We get to have our constitution. That's the constitution for government. Remember them figments of the imagination that creates government? Just put down on a piece of paper. And so we say that because that there are figments of our imagination, we get to create government. Yeah. Be advised out there, all you fake news publishing all that crap about sovereign citizen crap about Christopher Hallett, myself, and Neely. You're a bunch of liars. That's defamation of character. It's libel. You better change what you published. Trying to claim that the police said that. No, ain't none of that in any of the police reports, and nothing that they've published online of their Facebook their pages or their websites. None of them said that. That's all you guys. You're a bunch of fake news frauds. You're the frauds. You're all putting out the fraud, false statements, libel. Oh, it's in video too, so it's slander as well, right? Ignorance of the law is no excuse. You might want to start taking down and publishing retracted statements, right? Because that's how you have to be responsible for when you exercise that right of freedom of speech and freedom of the press. You have to be responsible not to lie, make false statements, no denying and disparaging your fellow man. Thou shalt not bear false witness. The violation of the common law. So, again, be advised. You might want to make some changes to your publications. Right? All right, my friends, my fellow patriots, Americans, and even my enemies. God bless you. God loves you. Make no mistake, he does. I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you on Monday Night Law, where we teach law, not the shit made up. God bless everybody. Prayers for everybody, of course. Chris and his family. And I did share on Facebook the GoFundMe for Chris's funeral costs and stuff. So I don't know how to get it out here, but I'll get it over there. I'll figure it out. But if you can, afford a couple bucks to send over there to help with the funeral costs. I'm recommending that you definitely go through Don and nobody else, that you make those donations directly to the GoFundMe. All right. So, first, this is crazy. He's got 5 kids. Thought he only had 3, but maybe I guess it was only the 3 younger ones. So, anyways, yeah, I'm still in shock of all this. Just telling you, can't believe it. Don't want to believe it, but it happened. Much love, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you on Monday night. Oh, good night, everybody.